Good afternoon. It's Lana, and I'm here with some nourishing love bites. So today I want you to ask yourself, are you seeing the patterns in your life? Are you able to recognize your own patterns? Chances are you can see patterns in other people, but the question is if you're able to see them in yourself first. So we mirror one another. Sometimes we see what we like or dislike in another when it really resides in us, or we wouldn't be able to recognize it to begin with. What is familiar tends to be where our attention ends up being. This is why we connect with like minds, because like minds, as I was watching a video with Jason Silva the other day, he was talking about the study of coupling minds and how our actual brain waves will synchronize when we connect with someone. Now that's totally fascinating and doesn't surprise me. We were on the same wavelength. We really vibed. We had a deep connection. It's all the same. So here's a curious thing. We're all creatures of habit. We tend to stay in the routines, the mundane, the habits, the patterns, no matter how comfortable it is or uncomfortable it is, because it's familiar. So change is like death, and you know why? Because it's unknown. We've never experienced it. This is where patterns occur, and we become comfortable with them, even in the discomfort. This is why people stay in abusive relationships, toxic situations, dissatisfied in your jobs, because of compromise for what you don't know for something you do know. It's easier to be stuck in the known than to venture into the unknown. But how does that serve you? Are you really truly living your life? And how can you really truly live your life if you're not willing to step in to the unfamiliar? If anything, your soul will start to die. Your passion, your joy will suffer. Your life will be what you deem as worthless. This is where depression comes in. And I think we've all experienced it, whether we admit it or not, because we don't live fully. Like the inner child within us that used to run around as when we were younger and just explore and experience. We get stuck in a pattern because it's familiar. And darn that ego mind, it can easily say, see, we got this covered. We've got control over the situation. We're secure because we're in control. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what patterns are keeping you stuck in your life? Are you feeling blocked? Because chances are, if you are, there's something that needs to change. And the first thing that has to happen is you have to become aware of what it is that's continuing to hold you in your patterns. Recognize them. See them. And in this past week, I've had this conversation over and over again with people to see what are your thought patterns, because that's where it's all originating. We tend to keep our thoughts in a constant stream. We may go into the same mode of thinking of comparing ourselves to others or situations. And it's not helping or serving us because we're not looking for the solution sometimes. We're actually looking for the disappointment or the repeated experience to keep occurring. So that routine starts in the mind, and you have to recognize the pattern of origin and sit with that and find out, where did it originate? Challenge it, asking it, how does this serve me? And when did it occur? When did it start? How did it start? Where is it coming from? Was it a trauma and a pain that now you're constantly trying to dress that wound? And the only way to truly heal a wound is allow it to open and breathe. We have to truly feel to heal. So I want to ask you, do you have that certain somebody who continually lets you down? And the reason this is coming up is because I think a lot of people can easily get caught up in the idea that someone has done something to them when in reality, nobody ever does anything to you, not without your permission. It's giving your power away to say so and so did this to me, or I'm a victim of any circumstance. It isn't Murphy's Law, it's your own mind. It's running the show, and don't let it try to make you think that it has no control when all the time it thinks it's controlling the situation. It tries to trick you, and it's pretty good. It's quite conniving. So here's the question. So if you do have that person, and you think they're constantly letting you down, when in fact they don't even know for themselves. The reality is we don't even necessarily know our own boundaries and limitations. And so we expect and assume in this amazing culture that we live in, well, they should just know they're overstepping the boundaries, which is totally uncommunicated. Have we had that discussion? Probably not. So if someone's stepping over your boundary, are you even sure or aware of what your boundary is? Or are you expecting them to determine what that is for you, and you just go based off them experiencing it in a way that it's like they dictate it for you? Again, you're giving away your power. You can't expect someone else to know your boundaries if you don't. And that goes back to your patterns. So when it feels like a person is taking advantage of you, the first question is, how is that possible? And look at the thoughts that you're having. How can someone take advantage of you if you're not extending yourself in such a way that you have an expectation of what it is you should get back from that individual? See, this is the first root of suffering. It's the attachment to our ideas that, well, if I do this for that person, they're going to give me such and such in return. And it could be as subtle as a smile. Oh, they didn't appreciate that. They didn't even, acknowledge it with a smile or a thank you. It isn't going to happen just because you think it should. And what you believe and your experiences have taught you for your thought process is not going to translate to someone else's. You can't impose your views, your experiences, your upbringing, individual to you, upon anybody else. Nor can they do it to you. Now that you can do it, you can project all you want. And all you're going to do is get back that suffering. It's like, here, come back on that silver platter. Been there, done that. No. The idea that another person should know is, again, falling into the assume category. And we've all heard that. And assume equals making an ass out of you and me. It's not going to help. So it doesn't serve anyone. Okay. So if you're giving of yourself and you do feel like you're being taken advantage, you have to step back and ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to get in return for this? That I'm suffering in the end? The ego mind, again, can drop into the, oh, I'm doing it from my heart. But if you're getting upset and you're suffering, you're in pain, disharmony in your life, it's because you're still having an attachment to an expectation and it's not being reciprocated in the way you feel it should be. That's not genuine from the heart. That's the martyr. And that's the ego trying to tell you, I'm supposed to be above everyone else. It's you know what? It's a great saboteur. Because when you think you're doing something for someone from your heart and you're getting upset, what you're really doing is setting yourself up for failure and another one of those notches of bad karma for yourself. You do something because you want to from your heart, and you release all strings, no strings attached. Doesn't matter what it is you want in return, that you release it. If you really want something in return, don't expect it. Literally, you have to surrender it. Just do what feels right to you, not because it has strings attached and you want something in return. And notice that pattern when you do it. because that's your ultimate saboteur. That's what's sabotaging your life of joy and keeping you from change and steady progression and evolution in your own life. So, life can only be as easy as we allow it to be. And I'm hoping that you're all holding yourselves in the highest regard in such a way that you're able to keep your joy during this time with all of the unknown. Here in the U.S., yes, we have an election. And in the end, we all want love. You can see the patterns. We're not here because we've tried something different. We're all stuck in this chaos because we've done the same thing over and over again. And it's this definition of crazy, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We have to stop being so complacent and actually take action and live. To extend love and joy to others, not to banter and be against our fellow man. It's not us versus them. It's us, united we stand. Because divided we fall. And when we remember that that was our originating founding father's wish, that we have all equal rights, then maybe our own lives can kind of relax a little bit more. So many love, hugs, blessings. I really do. My daily prayer for everyone is to recognize first the patterns in yourself and then the patterns in others. And when you do recognize patterns in others, I want you to remember that's telling you about them. They're being transparent. If they're repeating a pattern, which you may actually be holding them prisoner to too, because the ego will say, see, they did exactly what they always do. So, there's the familiar again. But when you see someone who is clearly telling you through their actions who they are, that's their integrity and their character. Hold them to it. Hold them in your heart. Accept them where they're at and for who they are at that moment. And stop having expectations of them doing something different. Just respond differently. Because it's with you the change is going to start for them. Because when you react the same way, it keeps them in the same cyclical habit and routine and pattern. When you respond differently, it kind of sets something off in the neurons in the brain and going back to the coupling brains and the wavelengths. Again, we do react and respond to each other's brain waves, keeping that in mind. When you do respond differently, you're actually sending them a wave, a brain wave that allows them a glimmer. They may not be aware of it, but something, it's kind of like the Jedi mind trick. That's a little unusual. That's not the way they usually respond. And you set this domino in motion. And you'll eventually feel and see it in your life. Happy Sunday, everyone. Daylight savings. Love you. Going to teach Kundalini Yoga at Yoga Village. Bye-bye.